You are listening to the New Dominion podcast, where we engage in curious and faith-filled conversations about stewarding your health in community with others. Welcome. I am Taylor Keene. I am a mental health counselor here in Missouri. I am joined by my wife, Dr. Abby Keene, who is a functional nutritionist and chiropractor, and our dear friend, Kirsten Hansen, who is also a functional nutrition practitioner and has lots of emotional awareness because she's a counseling degree in her history. So here we are. And today we're talking about emotional health.
Yay!
And my dear co-host made me do all this introduction because we're talking about emotional health, which is supposed to be my flagship, if you will, episode. Great. And I have no idea what to talk about.
All right. Well, let's remember why we're talking about emotional health. And we are
Yes,
going
absolutely.
back to episode 8, where we talk and introduce the triangle of health. And we said there are 3 parts of our triangle: physical, chemical, and emotional. And did we say this on the podcast, or was this on a post-podcast conversation about how spiritual health
Oh, you
should
said
be
that. You said
emotional
that in the initial one
in
about
the
the spirituals
episode?
in the middle. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so we've talked about physical, we've talked about chemical,
And here we
and
are.
now we get to talk about emotional.
Emotional. Okay.
So,
And I found this to be actually really difficult because I think it's such a broad term.
mm,
And I know that all these terms have been broad. Physical is obviously, we could talk about lots of various types of physicality, whether it's the world or our bodies. Chemical, we covered the gamut from everything from the sun to microbiomes. And so emotional, I just kind of wanted to phrase it differently as emotional world, because I think there's lots of words that are kind of thrown around in this context of feelings, emotions, sensations, and like, yeah. And so I think it gets a little bit murky where these things are different. And I'm not even sure where the difference of a feeling and an emotion technically is, because I've done research on that historically, and the definitions get a bit wonky of
yeah.
and so it gets a little bit murky in there, and I get lost in the rabbit hole, and I can't figure out where things are. So emotional world, just kind of where it encompasses these different areas, and from biological, in the neuroscience world of your nervous system and all the things about your brain, the cognitive and how we interpret or make sense of our world, whether it's narratives, labels, learning from our past, which creates inherent biases. And then there's relational, interpersonal, that we need, that also evokes emotional reactions or responses. Sometimes we understand them, sometimes we really don't because of that historical thing. And then I think there's also like a spiritual component that you mentioned in the circle, but I think emotionally speaking, there is a lot of things that happen with spirituality. Like I think those are, like, if you're looking at a gradient, I think emotional and spiritual really kind of blend together at some
Mm-hmm.
point. And so I think, so yeah, I think that's kind of my launching off point. I had an AI help me make a concise definition of the emotional world, or kind of just to kind of help me put words to it. So it's the dynamic internal landscape where our biological chemistry, our mental interpretations, and our relational connections meet.
Mm.
It is the weather of our inner life, influenced by what we consume, how we think, and who we are with. Now, there is no way on God's green earth I would have come up with that sentence ever, ever. And so, thank you, GPTs, for putting words to things that I don't know how to put words to. I think that's a benefit of our technology, but after that, it gets really murky. But so we'll just leave that over there. And
Yeah.
that. So when I say that definition, when I kind of give those things, what kind of happens for you guys? What is created in you when I kind of bring that up?
Can you read it one more time?
The sentence, the
Yeah.
AI inspired sentence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Our emotional world is a dynamic internal landscape where our biological chemistry, our mental interpretations, and our relational connections meet. It is the weather of our inner life, influenced by what we consume, how we think, and who we are with. Weather is air quoted for you podcast listeners.
Yeah. What are you thinking over there, Kirsten?
So many things. I can't wait. Bring it.
I'm wanting to see, and that definition holds so many things.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
trying to not just jump on and start ranting
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah. I am so an image that I've been thinking a lot about emotions. I've been thinking a lot about the ocean.
Yes.
The beach.
My favorite mental picture of emotional world.
Well, tell me if you've heard this one yet.
Okay.
So I have been thinking about, I mean, yes, when we experience emotions, they are meant to kind of flow as the ocean waves flow. Like we experience them and they flow away, and we just keep riding and we maintain who we are, our full selves in the midst of the emotions, and we ride the waves a little bit, but we've still got our fully formed brains as adults riding these waves, and we experience the emotions, they ebb and flow, they keep going. Something that I have been playing with is looking at emotions or like circumstances as the ocean, and me seeing this is such a, I'm like,
Keep going. You
Quit
can't
it.
stop
Quit it.
now.
Keep
now,
going.
but I'm like, shoot. Okay, I dove in.
To the ocean. That's good. You dove into the
I
ocean.
didn't dive into the ocean though. Okay, or I can choose. So here's the thing. If I am experiencing life and I see all of this stuff that's going on in the ocean, and what I have been trying to do sometimes is stay on the beach.
Yes.
And stay on the beach, not dive in and like experience all the waves and ride on it. And I kind of can tie this into either my experience of life or like watching other people's experience of life in the ocean, what's happening out there. And either me getting caught up in whatever like is going on out here and losing my groundedness, or me running like I'm out of here. I'm leaving the beach. I'm going into the city. What my goal has been in certain emotional situations recently has been to stay grounded and stay on the beach and choose. Do I want to get into the ocean? Can I like maintain who I am and stay grounded while I step into this ocean and swim and enjoy it? Or do I need to stay on the beach?
As if you always have that choice.
As if I always have that choice and I'm always completely in control, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, because I never have anybody in my office that struggles with control and really just wants to manage all the outcomes of all the emotions. That never happens. Sarcasm ended. I love the emotional world visual being the beach, including the waves of the ocean. I think the context is interesting, like that the circumstances you're in do create waves in response, right? The waves are in response to, right? But there's also our internal drivers that also create waves. And sometimes when those waves hit, they create big waves, right?
Mhm.
And so our internal understanding of ourselves connected with our chemical stuff that we just talked about in last episode, like how we're responding to that, the physical world, and our good Lord, people, like there's too much happening at once that if you're how I ever made it to this point in my life in the complete unawareness of what I was doing for most of my teenage and early 20s, like literally, like, how did you function? Like, were you even aware? Pretty much no, just no. And so let's start with biological for a second, which Abby is your wheelhouse. Kirsten, it's a aspect of the things that you do with nutrition. But one thing that was coming up for me in the chemical conversation that I didn't want to kind of override the lengthiness of that already long episode with was autoimmune disease. Like just the connection, the correlation between trauma and autoimmune, right? Like that's not always it's not a 100% correlated thing, but a lot of times trauma, unresolved trauma in your body, the emotional repression and holding back can lead to your body having to deal with that and get it out, right? Because our physical bodies are made to heal. Like you cut your arm, as Abby's mentioned in many episodes, like you cut your finger or your arm or your knee, skin your knee. Our bodies do all kinds of physical responses that go and heal, scab, scar, replenish the flesh, all these things. Well, the conceptualization of our emotional world is not much different.
Yeah.
Like our brain wants to heal emotional wounds from the past.
That's
And
it.
so it wants to, what's the question? Ask.
Oh, I'm like, there are so many times where people run like what part of our brain wants to heal from it, and what part of our brain wants to totally ignore that.
I think your design, I think your physiological design
That.
is to heal. God made us to heal. So like one of the main theories right now in functional health and circles and root cause medicine circles is called the cell danger response theory, right? And we talked about this a little bit, I think, in the past, but also remember that science is ever changing. And so we name things theories because we can't see everything happening in the body. But the cell danger response is that our cells have some sort of stressor, chemical, physical, emotional. This is why we talk about the triangle of health, because that's the versions of stress we experience. So a cell has a trauma, a stressor. Little t trauma. Let's use that interchangeably. And the cell sends out its mitochondria. Many people have learned that cells, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. And there's truth to that. But what we're finding is that they're also cell mediators and communicators. So if a cell has an onslaught of stress, physical, chemical, emotional, it sends out these cell mediators, these mitochondria, and the mitochondria go out into the bloodstream and basically are signaling for help. Something's going on. Oh no, we had
Timmy's in a well. Come.
Timmy's in a well. Lassie, come help. So you have the mitochondria are out in the bloodstream signaling whatever. Maybe it's an inflammatory cascade. Maybe it's antibody response to some sort of bacteria. Maybe it's just a cortisol release because the tiger's chasing you.
Yeah.
And so physiologically, what should happen is that the body does that, right? In a perfect world, in a perfect environment, in a healthy body, the physiology works correctly. And the mitochondria signal, the signals happen, the cascades occur. Everybody says, woohoo, we resolved the problem. And the mitochondria say, my job is done here. And they go back into the cell, and the cell function goes back to its normal baseline function of doing whatever job it's doing. Maybe it's a brain cell, maybe it's a cardiac cell, maybe it's a muscle, who knows, right? And cells communicate with other cells. They have constant pathways going in and out, talking to other cells around them. So let's say the trauma, the stress, whatever, is nonstop, right? Let's say, like last episode, we talked about only eating fast food. Or let's say you're in a horrible relationship and the verbal abuse is nonstop, whatever it might be. That response doesn't finish up. That mitochondria is always out there alerting the system. That inflammatory cascade does not get to complete itself. And maybe it's just left with the door open and it's a perpetual inflammatory cascade. We think from the cell danger theory is that there are kind of like zones is kind of how we formulate. So zone 1, if you got stuck here, you're in like chronic like sinus issues and stuff like that. Zone 2, you're stuck in something that looks more like autoimmune. Zone 3, you're looking at something more malignant and scary like cancer, right? And so that's the physical aspect of what you're saying, Taylor. And that I think the body does want to resolve trauma of all types. I am sure, just with my own story, there are some things that are harder to look at than others.
Well, so let's do a couple things because I think I want to define trauma from the emotional place, or emotional world, because we understand trauma in terms of people going to war and experiencing PTSD on the return, or car accidents or something like that. I mean, but the word trauma has also been flippantly thrown about, like, oh, you're saying something I don't like, you're traumatizing me. Please stop with that. So trauma is an interesting word because it's not so much about the event. but we always assign it to an event, but it's not the event itself. It's how you are able to respond or how you experience that event. And so a car accident, when I'm having a really rough day after eating Captain Crunch for a week and not getting a lot of sleep, I'm probably going to have, if I experience that car accident, I'm going to experience it in a lot worse ways because my system's not ready to heal or handle or is able to receive anything. Whereas opposed to if I could still have the same car accident on a different day after having a much better week, still traumatizing, but my system might respond differently or hold it differently, or even different systems. Abby, you might respond differently to a stimulus than I would, and so I think that's also the same thing when you talk about kids growing up in a household. Not only, I think you said this the other day, Abby, like how no kid has ever had the same set of parents. Like our kids have three kid has three different versions of us because of the time context of our lives and when they come in, and also just the fact that if they're younger, they have older siblings who've either jaded us or made things more difficult for them or whatever it is, right? So there's that, but also like we experience those relationships with our parents differently, right? And so like what might be traumatizing for my sister wasn't necessarily for me because of her place in the family of birth order, stage of life for my parents, but also temperament, right? And so when I say your brain wants to heal, it means we want to go towards the things, like there's a natural inclination to not stay where we are. So why do we stay? Fear, right? Mostly, but like there's a sense of like we want, like our like, maybe a better way to say it is like, how many times do we think about the thing that happened and wonder what we could have done different because of the wound that we're still carrying that's unresolved? Like there's this thing that wasn't said, or there's things that's not clear. It doesn't mean that we go back and we heal the relationship with this person and that we're suddenly best friends again. It could be, no, maybe there's just clarity that we don't need to be friends. And that, I mean, that's still hard and there's still grief in that, but like, never address, it's the leaving things unaddressed when I'm talking about wounds that aren't healed, is like the things that we're not saying out loud, the things that we're not saying to people, the boundaries we're not holding, the assumptions we're making from those places. That's where the continuous pattern of this happens. And we're still focused on the biological nervous system part of this. So this is where it makes us hypervigilant. This is where it makes us unable to settle. It makes us unable to connect. Polyvagal theory says if you aren't able to feel safe, then you can't rest. And if you can't rest, you can't heal.
I mean, that's physiology, right? If you're not in parasympathetics, you're not healing.
Well, it's a blended state of parasympathetic. It's not just parasympathetic. It's a ventral vagal.
Right.
And so like ventral vagal is like socially engaged. It could be, cuddling on the couch blended together. It also could be we're walking in a blended state together, or it could be we're sitting in a conversation. Like there's multiple versions of that. So it's not just parasympathetic. I want to make that clear. So
fair. I think I love that you're saying all this in community with others. Like what I keep hearing is the part of our tagline of in community with others. And I think it's just so important that like, that's why we're having this podcast, right? Is to find the people. There has been times where maybe you can't have the conversation with the person that you're not going to be friends with anymore, but
maybe they died.
Right. Yeah. Right. But to be able to process that with somebody else and not just by yourself, I think helps complete that circle.
I'm going to say this, but I don't know of the neuroscience backing to it. It makes sense to me logically. So I'm sure that if someone's more neuroscientifically researched, they can leave a comment and tell me how wrong I am. And my fraud complex is already going off like a fire hydrant here, a fire alarm, because I'm waiting for all the counselors in the area to be like, Taylor, what the hell are you talking about? What is going on?
We're just engaging in curious conversation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
When you say something out loud, instead of just the echo chamber of inside, when you say it out loud, a lot of things happen in just how you receive that. Like you hear it said, you get to see somebody receive it. Even if you're saying it to yourself in the mirror, you get to see a right brain connection happen, and you get to hear it, and it goes into your brain through your eardrums again, and you process it as new information, as opposed to the recurring bouncing off the same walls, echo chamber information.
Interesting.
And so I think the community piece of like a relational piece of this is so key to our understanding of who we are in relationship to other people, that we can't disconnect the biology from that. I mean, we're wired for connection. Literally, our brain is wired. Our eyes are wired. Our right brain is constantly scanning for another right brain to look at and connect with and go, are you alive? I'm alive. Hey, we're alive. This is good. Emotions. Look, you have happy emotions, but I'm feeling sad, but I like yours better. Maybe I'll join your happy side. And like, you can sway emotions based on relationship. All right.
Kirsten, sorry, I was going to pause you for a second.
Please do. God, let me drink tea here. So, yes. Here we go.
Everybody take, cheers. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, everybody. All right. What are you thinking over there, Kirsten?
Well, as you were just talking about how we hear things differently when we engage in those, when we say something out loud to another person, I was thinking two things. One, Curt Thompson is one of my favorite authors and speakers, and a resource that I wanted to add to all of these conversations is his book, Anatomy of the Soul. And
just all his books?
All of his books.
Curt, if you're out there, you can come on the show. It'd be great.
Curt, I have said out loud to multiple people that you are my dream podcast guest, just because I would like to have a conversation with you. All right.
Wow.
So
I second it, by the way, Curt, if you're listening ever. So
something that he talks about often in these kinds of conversations is that everybody comes into the world looking for someone who is noticing them, and that we long to, in conversations with others, feel seen, soothed, safe, and secure. And I am thinking about that in regard to what both of you are saying. Also, a part of what I do in life, separate that we haven't named, is I'm a pediatric sleep consultant. And there is so much information in the childhood baby sleep world online and in books. And the thing that I go back to in conversations with families that I work with, and also in kind of reassuring myself, like, hey, what I'm doing in this world is still valuable, right? Because there's so much information out there. Something that I go back to is parents. I'm often meeting with parents who are overwhelmed with information and so bogged down with their own thoughts. And I'm an objective person in the room, hearing them and also looking them in the eye and helping them weed through the information. When you read a book, you're still hearing it in your own voice. When you research information on ChatGPT and have ChatGPT pull out a baby sleep schedule based on what's going on for you, you're not looking in the eyes of another human being, and you're not experiencing the calming presence of the person in the room who's not activated in the ways that you are. And that's what I go back to. Like, I am a person in the room, helping, like, seeing you, hearing your story, helping you weed through it. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm helping you I am giving you my sense of calm so that you can also give that to your child.
Mm-hmm. I love that you brought up your sleep consultant, because one thing that you've said in the past that I was like, oh, I kind of wish I could do this as a practitioner, is that how sometimes you meet them in their home, right?
Yeah,
like you do a home visit. And how cool that is, because you're getting the lay of the land, right? And it's one thing to ask questions like Taylor and I do in our own offices and our environments that we've curated to make us most happy, day to day at work, versus what is the environment that this person is actually in. And who knows, like, what inputs coming in, smells, sounds, clutter, neighbors, neighborhood, right? Like, so much else is a piece of the emotional world that you just brought to my attention, that phrase,
Yeah.
Well, you just described everything you do in your process, Kirsten. That's the counseling training that you have. That's what I do. Like, I'm not special. Like, I'm not trying to be self-derogatory. Like, there are many, many, many good counselors in the world. Like, I'm just a counselor. I think, decently talented at what I do, but I am not I don't regard myself as I'm the solution that's going to fix you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just a guy that's going to hold space in a well, sometimes confrontational, but not intentionally. I'm like, that's not what I'm seeking to do, but I'm just holding space of like, I'm helping you carry whatever you're carrying, and I'm naming things that you can't see because they're too close. And I get the privilege of doing it. And I often tell people, I'm like, if you were sitting on the couch we're flipping spots, and you're talking to from about my life from the outside looking in, you're going to have insights. We know we're inherently wise about life as people, all these things, because we learn as we go, we adapt, we've learned to navigate the things we don't want, and so we make sense of these things. That's the cognition, that's the interpretation of the biology that we have. We interpret these sensations. We look at, like, that's unsafe, that's safe, we go towards safety. Even sometimes the trauma tells us erroneously which one is safe, though. We start to misunderstand what the definition of safe actually is. And so now we're in a constant state of like, I have to unplug every appliance at all times, or I am the world, we're hit by a meteor or whatever it is. Like, this doesn't even make a correlation. Like, unplugging a toaster is not going to be a causation of a meteor per se, but I think we make sense of it in our heads. And it's when we don't share those thoughts out loud that they start to gain traction. They start to get really loud, and they start to really become become concrete in a sense. Because the more you think something, the more real it is, the more true it is. And every time you go around that circle, it's more true, and it's more true, and it's more true. And so, like, helping to break up these dysfunctional thinking patterns, to help you come into it and maybe name something differently. Maybe look at a narrative that you've thought about from your past from a different possibility. And ask a question of like, have you considered, right?
I think sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's all in the context of relationship. That stuff doesn't happen necessarily in the confines of our own head. It can, but it's usually us playing through a conversation that my clients, like, I had a conversation with you over the weekend. I'm like, I don't remember talking to you over the weekend. And like, well, it was in my head because I imagined what you would say. And I'm like, oh, or I heard you in my head say this to me. I'm like, oh,
I hear that a lot.
Are we getting close to schizophrenia here? Like, I don't want to induce things.
Oh, people say that to me all the time. Like, oh, I walked into that gas station. I was going to get a snack, and I heard Dr. Abby say, you don't feed yourself where you feed your car. And I was like, all right. Well, I'm glad that's stuff.
So anyway, I think I just want to make sure that it was all in the context of relationship. But yeah.
Well, and I was just thinking, like, in light of our, we're saying having this emotional conversation because it's a part of the triangle, and how important all three aspects are together, right? So if you're burdened with chronic inflammation from whatever chemical burden you have, or you're not moving your body, some of my best thoughts come when I'm by myself on a walk without a podcast. I will have an answer come up to a problem that I did not have otherwise, right? When you train yourself in other ways, like our emotional world is fed by our physical movement, the joint receptors, the nociceptors, all the things that we have biologically in us, in our nervous system. There's so much that we still don't know about that, like, people know, oh yeah, runner's high. Yeah, that runner's high is that dopamine surge that happens because of you pumping through the epinephrine, all the things that are happening. But you don't have to run to get that, right? You can just walk. You can just stretch. You can just go outside and breathe fresh air and walk in place, like jump on a trampoline. Hang from the monkey bars, Kirsten's favorite activity. Like
hanging upside down from the monkey bars.
Upside down from the monkey bars. So, but those are all things, like, it blows my mind how many ways the Lord has given us to solve problems. Emotional problems can be solved physically and chemically. Chemical problems can be solved emotionally and physically. Physical problems can be solved chemically and emotionally. Like, it blows my mind. And we don't know what problems are what necessarily unless we can talk through things with another person who knows us. Like I had a client once who was struggling with like rib middle back pain. We could not figure it out. We did everything I could do chiropractically over the course of a treatment plan, which is like a few months. We were doing stretches, we were doing all the things. And it just kept coming back. And one day I just kind of was like, sat down with her. I'm like, what am I missing with you? Where, like, what? Remind me the origin of this. Tell me again. When do you feel it? You know? And it had all started from a car accident. And I said, I don't know. I think you need to go. I said, why don't you just go see a counselor? I'm not saying it's in your head. I believe you. It's not a like emotion, you know, it's not that.
Psychosomatic.
Thank you. Psychosomatic thing. I really truly believe you have this pain. But what is it? Where did it originate from? Because it's not changing with physical care. So she goes and she sees my husband as a counselor.
Oh, I hope I did well.
And I can't believe I haven't triggered. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying this patient's name, but it all started with a car accident. And he's doing his somatic work with her. And they're talking through this car accident. And he says, like, what I've noticed this area, whatever he does in his Jedi way, like, I noticed this area is tense. Where are you feeling that in your body? She says it. He said, what do you want to do right now? And she was, honestly, I just want to get up and walk out the door. And he said, go for it. And she said, what? And he goes, yeah, go walk up and down the hall. Go. You can leave.
You can come back.
But you can do whatever. Just feel free to honor your body is what it's saying right now. Feeling anxious about remembering that accident. It was a horrible accident. Miss all kinds of things were horrible about that accident. But physically, she was fine. She didn't have to be taken to the hospital. There was no ambulance involved. Physically, she was fine. But the whole event surrounding the accident and the way she couldn't get to her daughter, all these things were horrible.
Powerlessness and hopelessness. Right.
So she's in the counseling appointment. Taylor says, what do you want to do? She said, I want to get up and walk. He said, do it. She goes, she walks, from what I understand, up and down the hallway a couple times. Taylor starts hearing her laugh.
She started laughing as soon as the door closed. She started laughing as soon as the door closed.
She starts laughing. The pain went away. I didn't have to adjust that for that pain anymore. Like, the pain was gone. She processed all the way through. She wanted to leave that accident when it happened, but she couldn't because she was waiting to talk to the police officer, but he had to take care of the inebriated knucklehead who was the one who caused the accident to begin with. But she needed to go get her daughter. All these things were happening on in her eternal world. Nobody's talking to her. Everybody's dealing with the problem of the accident, this other human being, and she's just stuck there and she can't do anything. And so when Taylor finally touched on that in her story in a counseling appointment and she followed her body's ability to walk out the door, she was healed. Wild story, but it just reminds me that we don't know necessarily until we allow people to. She looked at me when I told her to go to counseling like I was crazy. I was like, listen, just try it out, And it blows my mind. It just reminds me that we don't have all the answers on our own. Taylor's not God's gift to counseling. I'm not God's gift to chiropractic and nutrition. Kirsten, you're not God's gift to pediatric sleep consulting, right? But we get to know people and we can have conversations and dig in and push in kindly and safely. And
allow God to work through those interactions that we have with other people.
Yeah.
But that's where the spiritual component comes into this. Yeah. It has to be a part of it. I say this to my fellow, counselors who we're all based in biblical theology. We're integrative counselors as we process through and we hold both the Bible and current neuroscience and counseling, theories. And we get to a point and we're like, what do people do who don't have God in the counseling room with them? When you get to a certain point of like you need to do something different. You can't white knuckle your way through it. You need to rely on something that at least is a conception outside of you. And even if you don't believe in God, holding space to the possibility that someone does care about you that you can't see does something, And so where do people go? How do you make sense of suffering and pain. And where do you place hope when
Yeah.
the idols of the world fail? So there's just like that spiritual component of our emotional world is so big too. I know that's the center of the triangle, but like we can't separate. You can't separate the spiritual from any of them, but I feel like it really resides heavy in the emotional places. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about how, and just acknowledging the spiritual aspect of all of this, how Satan wants to tear all this down, how
Amen.
evil. I was reading in First Peter this morning. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." And I was thinking about, with all of this, like chemical, emotional, physical aspects of our health, how God created us in his image and he created the world that we live in and these different aspects of our health and wellness. And Satan wants to tear those down. He doesn't want us to experience wellness. He doesn't want us to experience relationships with others or healing. And so I think we have to remember that too.
Amen.
Absolutely. And he wants us isolated, right?
Yeah.
So much easier to attack someone who's isolated and on their own versus someone who is in relationship.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to attack very much when you're isolated. He just says one thing
Yeah.
and lets it gather steam as it rolls down the hill.
Mm,
Remember, he's a limited being with limited power.
right. And he's not creative. He's like, Jesus is the creative one,
Yeah.
right? Satan has the same ploy every time. It's either fear, right?
Shame.
Doubt.
Shame.
Right. Like it's the same game every time, the same attack style. And so I think that's what's so cool about the chemical, physical, emotional triangle is that you can break out of his cycle by trying something different, being creative, remembering that the God of the universe is who created you, who created the things around you. And if you push into that and try something new and be creative in how you're approaching your healthcare, it's really cool to see what he'll do.
Yeah.
So does that feel like a good place to stop?
I think it is a great place to stop.
right.
Otherwise, we go.
All right.
I'm not
Okay,
taking us
I'll
out,
do it.
Kirsten.
You're not closing it all. You opened so well.
I thank you. I appreciate the compliment, and I will hold that, and I will sit here and wait for Kirsten to
If
talk
you
next.
all would like to hear Taylor open the podcast more often, please comment below. Let us know how great his radio voice is. And
Or if you
I'd love
just
to hear your
love
comments on that.
hearing me talk every episode, you can say that as well. Thank you for listening to the New Dominion podcast. We are so glad that you joined us today. We would love for you to like this podcast on whatever podcast platform you are using and leave us a review and a comment. Something that these first 10 episodes have been laying the groundwork for what we hope to do in the future and where we hope to dive deeper. So we would love for you to leave comments and tell us things that you're curious about, maybe some topics that you hope we explore or go deeper in. If you want to drop those in the comment section of the podcast, that'd be awesome.
If we're really confusing, you can ask the questions about that stuff too.
Clarify.
Absolutely.
Yeah, clarifications.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Absolutely. All right. We hope to see you again. Yeah, you guys can watch us as well. If you're listening on Apple iTunes podcast platform, you can hop over to Spotify and see us live in video action. We hope that you
recorded
video action.
I guess we're not live. Recorded video action. You can watch us or listen, but leave us comments. All right, thanks.